Hi everyone. I wanted to pop on here and do a quick lesson about adjectives, which is the part of speech that we're learning about this week. So we've focused on nouns and verbs before, and you've definitely talked about adjectives in previous grades, so this shouldn't be anything too new. But we're going to learn a little bit more about it than you have in past years. So, what are adjectives? An adjective is a part of speech that gives you more information about a noun or a pronoun. Let's just focus on a noun today. Gives more information about a noun by answering one of the following questions. So an adjective could answer the question of what kind. So on this, I'm going to go ahead and underline our nouns in orange. This is a noun: car, rope, person, house. All of these things that I just underlined are people, places, or things. Those are nouns. So when authors want to describe something a little bit more, they'll add adjectives. Now, in this case, you see that the adjectives are coming right before it, but that's not always the case. So here we have what kind of car? A blue car. What kind of rope? A long rope. What kind of person? A tall person. What kind of house? A big house. All of these describe these nouns by answering the question of what kind. An adjective can also answer the question of which one. So again, let me underline the nouns. Town, week, day. These are a little bit harder to find. But then, which town? This town. Which week? Last week. Which day? The second day. So these are adjectives that are describing which one of these nouns. Okay? And then on this, we might, an adjective might also answer the question of how many. So, oh, I forgot to add nouns after them. But let me just, I'll just focus on this right here. So a lot of times when we think of the question how many and about how adjectives answer that question, we think that it always has to do with numbers. So how many? 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. But when we talk about how many, that can go beyond numbers as well. So we could say all the dogs, or several dogs, or 3 dogs, or a few dogs. All of these are answering the question of how many, even though they're not all numbers. Okay, so let's start a little basic. This is a piece of pizza that I made tonight. If I had to pick some adjectives to describe this pizza, which pizza? This pizza. Again, that was an adjective. I could describe this as crispy, kind of thick, a little burnt, cheesy. Let's see, yellow. Those are all answering the question of what kind. Most of the time, adjectives describe what kind of thing. So again, let me describe something else. If I wanted to describe this ribbon, I could describe it as blue. I could describe it as polka dotted. I could describe it as bumpy. I could describe it as... Now, on this front part, this is cardboard here, so I'm not going to describe it as cardboard. I could say it's like thick cardboard. So make sure that you're not mixing up adjectives with nouns, okay? So that's probably something that you've done before. You pick an object and you describe it with different words. You give adjectives to it. But let's go beyond that. Let's talk about how adjectives are in the books that we read. So I do not have a lot of books here, but I did happen to find this one that I forgot to take into school. This is a book that I opened to the first page of it, and I copied down some sentences so that we could identify some of the adjectives that the author used to make their writing more descriptive and to make it more interesting. So keep this in mind when you're writing. How many adjectives can you add to it to make it more descriptive, to make your reader want to read more, and to understand what's happening in your story? So let's go back to this. And I'm going to put this part over here. Maybe we can still see it a little bit. Okay, so let's focus on this. This is a sentence from the book that I just showed you. Okay, this is one of the first sentences in this book. It says, a small fire glowed in the hearth as the last coals burned down from the fire. So what I'm going to do to help me out, now you don't have to do this, but this helps me. I'm going to underline the nouns. Remember, nouns are people, places, or things. So be careful. Don't, a lot of times people just start underlining everything, but really read through it and find the noun. So the first noun that I see is fire. I'm going to underline that. Hearth. Now you may not know what a hearth is, but a good indication, now not always, but a good indication that it's a noun is it has the right before it. And it doesn't have it doesn't have an adjective right here. It's just saying the hearth. Ooh, I lost the lid. And it goes on. Okay, so this is another noun, even if you don't know what that is. Another noun that I see is actually a plural noun right here. And then another noun that I see is this one. So there's 4 nouns in this sentence alone. Not all of them have to have adjectives. Okay, again, we're looking for words that describe what kind, which one, and how many. So let's focus on fire. Think about if there's any words that describe what kind, which one, and how many. And the first adjective we see is small. That answers the question of what kind of fire. Okay? A small fire glowed, that's a verb, in the hearth. This one doesn't have an adjective to go with it. There's nothing there describing the hearth. As the last coals, okay, let's stop there. Coals, if you look at the word last, that describes the coals. Now, just because it's coming right before it doesn't always mean that it's an adjective, but in this case it does, because last describes which one? Which of the coals? The last coals. Okay, so that's an adjective. Burned down from the fire. There's no other adjective to go with that. Okay, so then I went on to the next sentence. And it says, it was the only light in the windowless cabin. The first noun, again, I'm going to underline the nouns because that helps me out, is light and then cabin. Now look around those words and see if you see any adjectives. See what describes what kind, which one, or how many. And I see only. It was the only light. That describes which one. Which light? The only light. And then the last word is cabin here. And if we were describing that cabin, they described it as windowless. So we have 2 adjectives in that sentence. Usually Addie liked the warm glow of the coals in the darkness. Oops, forgot a period. So I'm again going to underline our nouns here. Addie is a noun. Liked the warm glow. I see the word the there. That's an indication that there's a noun over here. So the noun is not going to be warm. It's going to be glow. That's the thing we're talking about. Of the coals in the darkness. Now think about what adjectives you see. And I see the word warm. That describes what kind of glow. the warm glow. Okay, so your assignment is to go to a book, any book. I don't care what kind of book it is. I really don't. And what you're going to do is what I did. You're going to pick some sentences. I literally just opened up to the first page of my book and I wrote down 3 sentences. And the amount of adjectives that I found, I found about 5 adjectives just in those 3 sentences alone. So what you're going to do is you're going to open a book and you're going to type out some sentences, okay? And underline or highlight, whatever. You're going to type it out on Google Docs and indicate what adjectives are in that excerpt that you had. Okay, so you're going to do that until you have at least, let's say, 5 adjectives. Okay, so I happened to write 3 sentences and got about 5 adjectives from it. If you're reading if there's not a lot of adjectives in your book, then you might have to type out more than 3 sentences. If you have a very descriptive book, you might only have to type out 1 sentence. But whatever it is, grab a book, whether it's on Epic, whether it's in your house, and type out the sentences, not just the adjectives. I want to see the whole sentence and indicate the adjectives. Again, you can highlight, you can underline, you can bold them, whatever it is. When you're done, you will send that to your teacher. All right? If you have any questions about this, please email me and let me know.